welcome back, Atlanta. We are back in studio tonight with the amazing Keisha Kelley. We're so excited because she has been trailblazing sports media, uplifting young people, college athletes, HBCUs, and she is in the building tonight, y'all. So we are going to learn from her, whether you are interested in sports media or you just have a passion for it. We want you to stay until the end because we're going to really learn and glean from her as the expert. And tonight I am extra pumped because as you can see, we have Jerica, my co-host, who is with me tonight. Hey, Jerica.
Yes, hello. How are you doing?
So well. And I'm so happy that you're with us. Jerica is no stranger to podcasting, and she's very skilled in it. So we're excited that she's alongside me. Keisha, we got you in the building tonight.
Thank you. Thank
you for being with us. We are so excited. So we're going to start as tradition with Keisha's bio. We're going to jump into the conversation. So stay tuned. Stay with us.
Yes. So Miss Keisha J. Kelley is a native of Huntsville, Alabama, now residing in Atlanta, Georgia. Miss Kelley is a 2003 graduate of Southern University and A&M College of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. She also earned a Master's of Business Administration degree in 2019 from University of Phoenix. Keisha is the founder and CEO of Black College Experience, an HBCU sports media company with a vision to bring positive exposure to HBCU athletes. Ms. Kelley has been working in sports radio since 2011 and has hosted 5 different sports shows, in which 3 she has produced. In Ms. Kelley's current role with Black College Experience, she served as a CEO as well as a sideline reporter and journalist. We also have Ms. Keisha, who served as a panelist for Kentucky State University, speaking to more than 100 student athletes about mental health. We thank you, Ms. Keisha, for being with us.
Thank you. You make me sound so good. You make me sound so good.
You know, I love that because I feel like just jumping into the conversation, a lot of times as Black women, we do so much. We achieve so much. But then when we hear it, and it's really what we've done, right? It's our accomplishments.
Absolutely.
When we hear it, sometimes we're like, is that really me?
Is that really me?
You know,
is that really, can I do all of that?
Yeah. Right, because you are good. Like, period, right? You are the expert. So we're just really excited because you were a Black woman in sports media. We know that this is a field that's underrepresented by Black women are not necessarily.
Absolutely.
So tell us what really sparked you into this field. You have a bachelor's in psychology, and now you're in sports media, trailblazing. What sparked your passion for this?
So for me, you know, I look at it as there was not enough representation when it comes to historically Black colleges, university athletics. You know, same thing I said earlier, you can always turn on the TV. We see the SEC network, you know, we see Power Fives, Big Tens, we see all of these other people being represented. And then we have all of these HBCUs where we got gyms that's literally running through that nobody's highlighting. And, you know, I kind of date myself because I'm one of those, you know, Doug Williams, Jerry Jones, Michael Strahans, Walter Payton, you know, Aeneas Williams. I'm one of those people, you know, those, I would say my era, but those are the people that, you know, we know about, all out of historically Black colleges. And so when we start looking at those Pete Richardsons, you know, those undefeated coaches and, you know, that's where the history lies. And so before you had these big schools, it was HBCUs. And so it was just the need to cover, the need to bring these stories out. And so when you look at it, it's like the story wasn't told. It wasn't told how we want to tell it. So it's like, well, you know, if we don't tell it, who's going to tell it? If we don't tell it, when are we going to tell it? So it's up to us to tell our story because only we can tell our story best. So it was a need to just bring the exposure to those athletes. It's a need to bring the story out.
You know, it's really powerful. I'm not a sports media specialist. So you're using some language and I'm like, I wonder what that means. But I think just understanding the context of Black people stories have traditionally not been told from a place of empowerment or has been told from a place of the oppressor. So it's really interesting how even in the context of sports, we see that same theme where Black folks, again, athletes, Black athletes that are gyms running through HBCU colleges, not getting the coverage that they deserve. What really heightened your awareness in this?
So, just looking back at some of those times, even looking at the inaugural Celebration Bowl, that was North Carolina A&T and Alcorn. And, there was a guy named Tariq Cohen. And Tariq he was a phenomenal person at that time. Like, it was like 2015. And so he ended up being drafted, I'm going to say fourth round with the Chicago Bears a couple of years ago. And so, he was one of those people that we knew about. And so, 4 or 5 years later on down the line, when they're talking about, well, we knew about Tariq. Right. So, it's the we knew, but y'all didn't know. Is that what we laugh at when you hear the story 2-3 years later? We're like, well, we knew about it. We knew, y'all never acknowledged these guys, because even when you hear the stories about our female athletes, our male athletes, it's always, well, they're from a smaller school. It's never, it's X's and O's. It's still Division I. It's still Division I sports. So it doesn't matter if it's a smaller school. Right. It's still X's and O's. It's still a Division I school. And so we just want the same respect.
Absolutely.
And I mean, you don't have to give it to us. We're going to take it. So we're going to do what we're going to do regardless. And that's just how we are.
I love it. I love that. And, for those that may not be aware of what sports media looks like, can you sort of paint some context for us?
So for me, for sports media, no day is the same. No day is the same. For anybody in media, it's 24 hours. Something is always going on. So it could be different things, different stories happening. So the key thing is when those things are happening, you have to jump on those things immediately. And so y'all know in social media, we live in real time. You want everything to drop at the moment that is going on. And so if this player got injured and this player scored a touchdown and this player scored 75 points, all of that's dropping at the same time. And it's like all of this content is going at the same time. Yeah. So nobody cares if you're tired, if you're sleepy. Nobody cares what you got going on. All of that stuff has to drop at the same time.
Wow.
And if you're working by yourself, you're the only person that's dropping the content at the same time. So it's, you're living in that. You have to be driven. You have to be that person that's determined. You have to want it, because that's what sports media looks like. It's always going. It's always something that's going on.
Wow. And that's really good that you mentioned those points, like being driven, that the constant environment where there's things going on. So people that may even really gravitate to that type of work, maybe this is something they should consider. Because I feel like in our schools growing up, high schools and middle schools, typically when we're learning about careers, sports media is one that we typically don't hear about.
Correct. We don't hear about it.
Yeah. So I would love for you to talk a little more about that. I'd love for Jerica to
how can people nowadays or students get into this industry? What does that look like with them getting into this industry? Because like you said, they do not talk about this a lot. I haven't even heard it when I was in school.
Nope,
I'm just once. Now hearing about this at my adult age that people actually do this. And so
and Black women
Black women. Yeah, and that's what I was talking about even beforehand, before we got on here. How did that look like with you being a Black woman coming into this industry with men? So I know that was 2 questions, but I do like this one about you being a Black woman coming into this industry with a whole bunch of men.
So I say it all the time, you will never out hustle me. I live by it.
I love it.
I do. When I walk in the room, you just command the respect. No matter what else is going on, you command the respect. And at this point in my career, I'm gonna be honest with you, I no longer try to prove myself. I do not. Whatever I'm going to do, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the research, and I'm gonna make sure I know exactly what I'm talking about. Because when you show up, you have to be consistent, and you have to know what you're talking about. And so once I show up and I'm consistent and I know what I'm talking about, you pretty much can't deny me anything. From that point, you can't deny it. But we did not hear about it. When we were in school, it was doctors, lawyers, teachers, engineers. That's
being
what we
the basketball players, football players.
That's something, though. I'm sorry there. Being the player, but not being the one behind the sports media, the person in those managerial and administrative positions that controls the awareness and the influence.
Right. And so that's why it's so important when we're telling the stories. One of the key things with me is even telling the stories, I make sure that we tell the positive side of it.
I love it.
Because we have enough negative media going on.
Oh, yeah.
So I make sure we pull out only the positive stuff. And we know it's a lot going on.
Right.
But 100 people can tell the negative side. One person will tell the positive side.
Right.
And I'm gonna get the positive side every time. Even if it's one person viewing it, I'm going to get the positive side every single time. Because that's what the aim is.
I love it. I love it.
That's definitely what makes the difference. We need more positivity on our feeds, on our news and media stations. And so commend you for that. And not following the bandwagon of putting the negative things out about these players. And so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to that, I feel like a lot of Black athletes, they are harshly judged.
Correct.
And to your point about only putting out the positive, a lot of times we see the negative content viewed about this person was on drugs or this person, this Black athlete, just all the negative, the stereotypes that play into who Black men or Black women are.
Right.
But I love how you're dismantling that through your storytelling, through what you're doing through your content.
Yes. And that is, does that come with your psychology background as well? The reason why you do that with the positivity and upbuilding as well? Because like you said, a lot of them are hearing a lot of negativity about themselves on the media. But does your background in psychology play a part in that positivity that you're putting out?
So that was part of my vision. That it was always part of it's even in my mission, in the statement when we actually became official. But it's one of the things that I always said, we will always keep the positive side. And even when in the bios, it's always, people always go back to that keynote thing. I was like, you got to make sure you tell them it's the positive stuff that we're going to discuss. And, people have come to me. It was like, a lot of people just want to talk about the positive things. Yes, because I heard one of my friends say, a lot of people are following HBCUs. It's like a crash. It's like a car crash, like an ambulance. They're following, waiting for the next negative thing to happen.
Right.
And I took that, and he just said that recently, but it's a true story. A lot of people are following it because so many things have happened in the last year or so. And so with that, people are following it. And it's just like, instead of talking about us when we were just, it's this story or this story or this story. Now with all the hype that's come behind it and, coaches that have come and gone and done different things, now it's something more to talk about.
Right.
So it's like ants, just following just to see what the next hot thing is going to be. And, some of them don't really care. Some of them do, but it's just a way to boost ratings instead of really telling these athlete stories. So, yeah.
And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about the difference between an athlete that's in a HBCU, a D1 school, versus an athlete that's in a regular university, D1. What's the difference?
Well, it's definitely going to be resources. Resources is definitely going to be a thing, but we live by, we take what we got, We, with a little, we make a lot. And we've always gotten by over 100 years. We've always gotten by with what we have because we're rich in tradition, culture, history. We do what we have to do. Yeah. And that's the one thing, you can't paint a HBCU experience. You absolutely cannot. You just cannot. You can't buy it. I don't care. You can go to your Black student unions, but you can't do it. HBCU is an experience you just cannot phantom unless you're there at that actual school. And so, they'll have all the resources, and I'm not knocking that. We want the resources. We want the weight rooms. We want the training. We want the food. We want everything that these other schools have. But we know at the end of the day, we recruit according to budgets. When people talk about, HBCUs, you got to donate more. It would take us 100 years to meet and even beat some of these other schools with all of our alumni donating. So it's not, you have to talk about the racial divide. You have to talk about the budget cuts. And that's what people don't want to touch.
Can you touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so, you know, when you talk about, you know, again, I come from Southern University, and I was in a state where Southern and Grambling had let's say you got $100 million budget, and that's cut in half. So now you're down to $50 million. And you think about what $50 million is done, taken away. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so when you have people like, at the time I think it was Jindal at the time that had those budget cuts. That's a lot of money, and people don't talk about that. So they think it's just, they're not donating back to their university. That's not the case. You got budget cuts, and when you have budget cuts and you have, you know, this underfunding, as we can look at, you know, with the state of Tennessee, and it's like billions and billions of dollars that are owed to these schools.
Wow.
Then you can see the disparities there, and you know that's the things that people don't talk about, and that's the things that people. They pull the wool over their eyes, like it never happened, but we know what's going on.
And what could governments do better, policy, to ensure that HBCUs are actually funded, especially in the area of college sports?
Well, we're gonna start back. We want our money back from long time ago.
Let's
start. We want some reparations, really.
Period.
But you know, it's all, you know, bills and different things, and you know, just like I said, even the cut in funding.
Right.
It's like we have to fight so hard just to get money, and I'm just like, listen, you know, my $1 million to your $5 million, or my $1 million to your $1 billion. It's just not the same. It'll never be the same. And it's like, we can't get excited over $5 million when you're getting $1 billion. We just can't, you know, it's just not, it's not the equal. It's not on the same playing field. And we know it. We know the playing field is not leveled.
But it's been like this historically for as long as, I guess, HBCUs have been in existence. So it's almost like we're always playing catch up. And we see this in every industry.
Absolutely.
Sports, media, education, healthcare. We're always trying to play catch up.
Correct.
Yes. So one thing that I did not cover in your bio was that you have a scholarship.
Yes.
And you have given to 11 students. Can you talk about this scholarship? How did it come about? What is it for? Can you talk about that?
So the scholarship, it's in honor of my late father, and education was so important to my dad. My goodness, it was so important. It was 4 of us. I have a twin sister and two other sisters, 2 older sisters, and so you know, yes. Bless his heart. So, you know, it was really, education was really important to my dad. And so that was the thing. And so when I got into Black College Experience, it was not just about, you know, telling the story of these athletes, but it was like, you know, how can you pour back into the community? And I'm really big on community service. That's one of my things. I love community service and giving back.
I love it.
And so it was like, okay, well, how can you take what you're doing and turn it into giving back, not just telling the story, but how can this benefit some of these students? And my first 2, y'all still remember my first scholarships. 2 people was like $800, and I was so proud. I was so proud. But one student was at Howard University, which she's studying abroad, and she's getting ready to graduate. Which it was like $500, and the other student was like $300 at Southern University, and she has graduated. So in that time, I think I've had like 6 or 7 students that have graduated, but it's been a total of 11 scholarships. And, you know, the whole purpose is, you know, it ranges $500 to $1,000. But it's, you know, the whole purpose is for them, you know, whatever it is, y'all know how college is. Books are not cheap. You know, stuff is not cheap. So, you know, the whole purpose is if I can't pay for this, or I need something to close this gap, you know, whatever they want to do, I just send the check. That's all I do is send the check.
Wow.
I send the check.
We need more people to send the checks because that is how access is created.
Correct.
You know, we talked about budget cuts with HBCUs, and that 50% budget cut. I mean, that's insane.
Correct.
And I don't know that those are like actual numbers right now, but that is insane to cut a budget by 50%. And so we need more financing of these initiatives for college students.
Absolutely.
And our college students, again, they're the ones that are they're missing out. They don't have a rich uncle to write them a $50,000 check.
Correct.
Right. And things are becoming increasingly more difficult for our students. So I'm wondering, how do you see this scholarship growing and expanding to help more students to go to HBCUs and to compete in college sports?
So I think the one thing is that it was the buy-in. You know, once people see what you're doing, because, you know, we got to get people to buy in. People got to buy in. It's like, okay, well, I see what you're doing. And so I think one of the most selfless things that we can do is give back. It's one of the most, you know, giving back is one of the things that I just feel like we just have to do.
Yeah.
And so even if it's $5, it's like, okay, well, I know my $5 went towards somebody, you know, getting something.
Right.
And so once we, you know, people bought into it, they keep seeing it and they see where it's going. Well, I can see where my money's going.
Right.
Then they're more apt to do it. Once they see, you know, it's like, well, I'm not keeping it, you know, it's going right back into, you know, you're sowing the seeds. And the funny thing is that there are no sponsorships. There are no corporate, you know, this is strictly friends and family. This is friends and family that's donating,
Congratulations.
you know, buying T-shirts and just donating. I'm just like, I'm begging for money. And my motto, I ain't too proud to beg. And it's for somebody else. And so I had students that would reach out to me and there's like, you know, Miss Kelley, I you know, you don't know what that $500 did for me or whatever. So like I said, $500 is $500.
That's right.
And a lot of times we don't realize how far that, you know, that $500 could be. I'm paying on this bill, or, you know, this is the difference in me getting this book, or the difference in me getting, you know, something in housing. But, you know, like I said, I've had students go on. I think I have 5 or 6 that have gone on to graduate.
Wow.
You know, from different schools, and I've awarded 11 different schools. But, you know, they've gone on. I have, like I said, one student, first one came out of Howard University. Well, coming out of Howard University, she's studying abroad. So, you know, to see some of these students, Tennessee State, Clark Atlanta, Southern University, Florida A&M, Alabama A&M, to see some of these students, Alcorn, you know, that you've awarded to, North Carolina A&T, I think he got his master's.
Ooh,
and it's just like, you know, they're at different heights. So it's exciting. It's very exciting to see what these students are doing now.
Wow.
That is so good.
That is powerful.
Some good success stories. Knowing where your money is going to.
Right.
And seeing the fruit of it.
Right.
You know,
absolutely.
You know, these are college students, so we would throw out money some of everywhere, but they are actually graduating. And so that is so good.
And I think of it almost like seed money. You know, we talked about like the playing field not being level. This is everywhere. I'm talking about even the nonprofit world,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
The playing field is not level. And so a lot of times nonprofits are even struggling to be able to give back to their own students and their own youth, because they're still competing for the same dollars that larger nonprofits that are white-led are competing for. But it's seed money. So when you're able to take seed money and invest it into a young person, you will see an ROI. You're going to see a return on your investment at some point.
Absolutely.
So I love how you're taking that, like dollars, and you're pouring it back in, because that's access. And that's what a lot of Black kids lack. We lack access. And so I love that you're doing that. But I would love to see this expanded to other colleges, maybe even in the North. I love to see it expanded outside, just so other people can benefit from this. What's your vision? Is that your vision to sort of expand it greater, or what are your
So I do, you know, I do. It's always like, you know, you always want to grow. You want to go from 11 to 15 to 25. Yes. And so you always want to grow. Corporate sponsorship, always looking for like I was like, I want the big money because I want to get more scholarships. And so what happens is, you know, you end up just breaking it down to make it smaller so more people can benefit for it. But it's always about expansion. And so when I'm not able to do the actual sponsorships, I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with Adopt a Senior.
No.
So what happens is with adopting a senior is where you adopt the seniors that are coming out of high school. And I did that project. So I took on like 4 seniors.
Nice.
And so it was like, okay, well, I'm going to this HBCU. So I got like the T-shirts and sent them like gift boxes.
Love that.
And they all sent me like pictures. And then one lady said, hey, Keisha, one of your children are graduating. So one of them's coming out. So, you know, it was like, okay, well, we can't do this, but we can do this. So yeah, you find ways to support those students, even if it's not always through scholarship dollars. You know, you find ways to donate, to give back, adopt a senior, whatever it is that you have to do to make sure you're still, you know, pouring into them, giving back, mentorship, whatever it is, you still find a way to give back to them.
Yes, mentorship is absolutely important. The benefits are lifelong. So kids, young people, they benefit from this for a lifetime. So whether you're pouring in through money or you're pouring in through knowledge or skill or love, that's going somewhere.
Absolutely.
And they definitely remember that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have students that still remember you from the very first time. Do they still keep in contact with you?
They do. Like one of my mentees, she sent me motivational messages every morning, and I'm like, "Dang, I'm supposed to be sending you messages." But she
That's
does.
when you're a good mentor.
Yes,
When
she'll
a
send
mentee
them.
becomes a mentor.
And it'll have like some inspirational. It might have a Bible verse or something attached to it. And I was like, but she has really. And here's the crazy thing: I'm a twin, but she's a triplet. What? So it's really crazy because two of them are at Southern and one of them's here at Georgia State. Right. And so it's crazy just to see how they've grown. They have truly grown over the time, and I've watched them, and I've watched her in particular and all the different things that she's done. Right. And I'm like, I can't even take credit for how you just went and just got it. Like I always tell her, like, there's gonna be some no's, but you gotta have thick skin. You gotta go get it. And she has just gone and got it. So I'm really proud of her.
The apple doesn't fall from the tree. You her mentor.
That's right. I love it. What keeps you grounded? You do so much. You pour out. You give. Your heart is invested in this. You're super passionate about what you do. How do you keep yourself grounded?
It's oh Lord, it's a lot of prayer in it. It's a lot, and it's a lot of de-stressing into it. I have to do a lot of different things, and I have those moments where I have to take my mental break. There are times when I'm like, okay, I don't want to do sports today. I don't want to talk about it. And people always come back. They want to talk about it. I'm like, I don't want to talk about this today. Like, can we talk about something else? And then they come back. And so the way that I stay grounded is to work on different things. Because I don't, I'm Black college sports, but I'm also an alumni president. And so I try to focus on multiple things. And so when I'm mentoring in this, and I'm mentoring in a different state, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing different things. I have my moments where I'm like, I just want to decompress. I want to watch something silly on TV.
Yeah.
And so I have to I can't just focus on the same thing all the time.
Right.
It drives me crazy. Drives me insane.
Same. I have like 20 windows open, 20 tabs on my computer, and sometimes working on my Mac desktop and my Mac laptop. And I'm like,
it's a lot of stuff. Yep. You have to.
Yeah, I feel like we do that a lot as Black women. We juggle between multiple things.
Absolutely. We do.
Yeah.
That's right.
We do.
De-stress. That word stuck out to me because, like you said, we do a lot. Can you give someone that is watching some encouragement or even an example of coming, with the de-stress coming, what help me with this?
Self-care.
Yeah. And taking care of themselves so that they don't have to get into that extra level of stress.
Burnout.
So I'm a gym person. I'm a gym person.
Okay.
So 4:20 in the morning, I'm going to be up,
Wow.
getting ready to go to the gym. The gym is a thing. And so that's one of the ways that I keep the mental clarity. I have to have that, that's how I get up, roll. Right. When I come back to the house, I feel like I'm about to pass out. But, that's just my get up and go. So, that's one. And some people, do meditation. And I've learned to change my mindset. My mindset has to change. And it's like, okay, you change your mindset and things are different. But the gym is that's my thing. I have my meditation. I get up, I read my daily bread, and I'm like, all right, we're ready to seize the day. Now, between me driving from the house and me getting to work, it's a totally different thing because my house road rage. But that is definitely how I started. It's definitely the get up, and the gym is definitely the go-to. It's definitely the first thing for me.
I love that. And we actually talked about mental health a little bit before we started rolling. But we talked about the idea that Black athletes or just Black people in general tend not to touch on mental health. But I think the disparities may be just a little more greater when it comes to college athletes and HBCUs. You were able to take an opportunity where you've spoken to young people, over 100 youth about mental health. And you were surprised that many people reached out to you. Tell us more about that.
So in this case, of speaking to athletes, because a lot of times, like you said, a lot of people don't talk about mental health, especially with athletes. We're expected to just pick up and keep going. And, if you're a star athlete, no matter what, everybody thinks they're a star athlete. But, in the case of being that athlete, being that person, an injury happens.
Right.
We don't know how that affects people because people are so apt to just keep going. They think you're supposed to just keep going.
Right.
And so many times the resources are not there for our athletes at Black colleges. You might send me over to the counselor's office, or I might send you over to talk to somebody.
Wow.
As to where at some of these other institutions, it's more resources.
Wow.
And I'm going to sit you down and I'm going to talk to somebody and we're going to have this conversation. And, I tell people therapy is probably the best thing I've ever done. And it was like years ago, but it's one of those things where we talk to our friends. And our friends are tell us what we want to hear.
Oh, right.
Our friends tell us what we want to hear. A therapist is not going to be biased. And sometimes you have to go listen to an unbiased person, an unbiased ear, somebody that's not going to say what you want to hear.
That's right.
And so many times with athletes, it's like we mask things. And I've saw so many, what we see is after the fact. Mental illness is real. Mental illness is real. And I've saw athletes, pass away, and had an athlete that passed away.
Wow.
And it was probably one of the hardest things to deal with because when you see it and you see the notes and you see it after the fact, it's very it's tough to deal with. And these are young people, these are young people that you're like, it's so hard. So it's like, people always say, well, why didn't you just say it's not that easy? And as a person with, a degree in psychology and that background, it's hard to just accept that. And you can't just say, well, why didn't you? It's not that easy. But so many people are, they just mask it. They wear it, and we wear it a lot of times, and people don't see it. And we get up, and that's how we're trained to just get up and go. And we don't want people to see what's lying underneath, but you'll be surprised how many athletes deal with mental health issues. You'll be surprised.
What makes college students, or just people in general, from your understanding, mask their feelings or what they're going through?
I think it's the sense of not wanting people to know. And more people are talking about it now, but probably when I was in school, nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
People were embarrassed about it. And it's like, if you're depressed, you're depressed. It is. I mean, think about all the things that you take on as an athlete. You have to be this athlete. You have to do practice. You have to prepare. You're trying to go pro. You're trying to do whatever. You're still going to school.
Pressure.
You might have a girlfriend or a boyfriend. You're trying. It's a lot that you're faced with in college. And if you're one of those collegiate athletes that's a star, it's even more. You're facing all of these things and trying to maintain grades and do all of those things. It's so many things that you're dealing with.
Right.
And so, you could be dealing with all of that on the outside, but on the inside, it's eating you up and you just covering it. And it's just layers and layers and layers and layers of things that we're hiding behind.
Wow. How could we use coaches as a way to help facilitate these conversations on mental health?
So, and that's funny because the coach is probably like the closest person next to the teammates, that you'll be talking to. And I think a lot of times coaches miss the mark because they're coaching and they're doing what they're used to, and to no fault of their own. Right. That's just what they're used to. And so sometimes they can miss the mark of somebody being depressed, somebody going through something. And so when I see athletes say, professional athletes say, I'm going to take the time off and I'm not going to play this weekend, people are like, well, I don't understand why, they're playing around. I was like, mental health is serious. It's a real deal thing. And a lot of people don't talk about it. So now when you get more people coming out talking about it, they think you're playing about it. But I'm like, well, no, people can be depressed.
That's right.
People can be schizophrenic. People can have whatever they have and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's totally fine, because when we deal with so much, then you hit this pressure and it cracks. It just cracks.
Wow. Wow. We are so blessed to have you as someone with a background in psychology, also in sports media, and believe that maybe you would be the trailblazer in this and really bringing these conversations on a greater level to our college students. I do believe that there is a need for it.
It definitely is. I actually do see her doing sessions even on campuses in the gyms and in the locker rooms and even helping even to identify what that looks like, because like you said, they do mask it, but the coaches don't even know what to even look for or even be aware of.
That's true.
So I do see that as even been another lane that you even stepping into. So that is definitely something that is not even touched or hit on yet behind the scenes, being taught to those coaches and also those athletes. So merging the two.
Love it. We just gave you a whole new industry, Keisha.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.